Yeah, yes, yeah.
So, this is an ongoing process right now. So do we need to research anything directly, or you're in the loop and you're getting this stuff and you'll be hearing it from the
So I'm in the loop because of my involvement in SCOBA and other villages, but you should go online and look at, you should follow what's happening online with this. I mean, so you'll see, if you go online now, there was a really good article in the Southold magazine, the Southold newspaper, about this, that discussed pros and cons, because some of the towns out east are more vocal about this. They don't, they think it will have a bigger impact on them. So I think I would recommend you involve yourself in that, educate yourself in that discussion, and then because the county's not good at giving us a lot of notice about things, so we may find out at one of these meetings that the next day or a couple of days there'll be a meeting, and we need to make a decision. So, but I'll definitely forward anything that I see.
I used to deal with the county, and it was not a good thing. The state was on top of things. Locally, we have, county scale, you can talk to people, but the county, this is not a good thing. We have to do it, it sounds like, because they have some leverage as far as money. I can't imagine us saying, no, we're not going to do it.
Well, I don't think we have a choice.
No, I'm just saying that when they get involved, it's another
Okay. All right, then the last thing we had is last meeting, we discussed the policy for adult use and then recording and taping.
So I think the second page of what I have. I'm sorry. I did a sample policy for videotaping and recording of meetings, and this is you cannot obviously cannot outlaw. You cannot prohibit taping and videotaping or audio taping at meetings or both. And but what you can do, the thing is that you can regulate it so that it doesn't interfere with the meeting, and also it doesn't intimidate anybody at the meeting or frustrate the process. That kind of thing. So and I'm not commenting. This isn't a comment about this meeting, but I just wanted to tell you from my experience what I've seen. Normally, if somebody's sitting at a meeting and the person in front of them turns around and they're facing with a camera or a phone while they're talking, and I'm not specific to Poquott, this is just an example. That would be an example of intimidation, or interference with the meeting. So just as an example, but what the policy that I gave you as an example does is it gives in this case the mayor. This actually came from a different village. It wasn't drafted for this village. It actually came almost word for word from a different village. But the mayor determines if somebody's being intrusive and interfering with the meeting through their recording, and then the person can be asked to position themselves in a different place in the room. They still have to be able to record in the room. They can position themselves in a different place. Sometimes what's done is they're behind the last seated person or standing person, and then they can continue with their recording. But then if there's still some kind of a problem and having to do with like lighting or things like that, then they could be asked to stop if it's to that point. So that's what I drafted for you to look at. We don't have to pass it around tonight.
We have something small in the policy book, but it's not that extent, so maybe we should change that. Okay. And then building use.
Okay, so then the other thing that I was asked to look into in the last meeting was to develop a policy regarding the building use. And as I said at the last meeting, if you don't have to open the building to public meetings. I mean, this is the place for village business. You're not required to open it to public meetings. If you do. To meetings other than village business. If you do open it to meetings other than village business, you cannot determine the use of a group by group. It has to be basically open to the public. So if you open the door, the door has to be open to the public. It then becomes a public place, and it has to be open to the public. And you can't qualify it based on the type of group or what they're saying. In this, I had all different types of groups I've run into with this across the island, where this question has come up. But you cannot regulate in any way what's being said at the meeting as part of your decision on the use. But what you can do, because it's an interior space, is that you do have the ability to say either that it's going to be open or not going to be open, and given the parameters of this space, I think that's a reasonable. It's my opinion. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. I mean, it's a small space. It's where you keep your records, and there's a number of other issues with this space. So. If you do it, you can make a decision on that basis that the building will not be available for outside use, non-governmental or non-village, village meaning the village government use. You can do that.
Okay.
So, did I confuse everybody enough? Does anybody have any questions?
Is that, do they define a meeting, for example, is a party, a one-time party for anybody? Does that open that same door?
Okay, so it's not, there's no, if I use the word meeting, it's not defined, what's happening should not be defined as a meeting, it's,
Use of building.
yeah, use, or open to the public.
So as soon as we allow anybody to use the building other than village government, that means the door's been opened and all these things can happen?
Except, what you're able to do is you're able to regulate it, based on safety, capacity, safety, time of the day, things like that, cost, reimbursement for cost. The cost can be the pro rata cost of the, heating and insurance, and the code enforcement if they come and public safety if they come and go to open the building or they're here, things, whatever the actual costs are of the village. So
Now, is this in state law? Is this, what are the precedents where you're getting this information from?
okay, it's a combination of state law and the First Amendment law. First Amendment of the Constitution. Excuse me.
I hear all the time that various buildings are having some kind of Christmas party. Holiday party, this or that. Could be more. So are they just basically with a wink and a nod doing that because nobody ever made an issue out of it? Or is it because they literally are open and it goes without saying that they're allowed different things to happen in the building?
Well, usually it would be a village-sponsored event. Meaning government, village government
That's
sponsored.
true. The ones I'm thinking about was sponsored by they bring in other, scouts and local youth groups and various things they bring in there. So I'm just wondering whether or not there's some wiggle in here.
We've had driver safety classes here. We've had a Coast Guard approved safety class here.
Right. So anything that we would think of that would be, oriented towards the village, but it's technically not, for exactly those kinds of things. Something that you could say, well, who's gonna argue that? It's not controversial. It's just kind of.
But if we don't allow anyone,
Well,
they
that's
that
what
would be
I'm
to me too.
trying to, I'm trying to just get a sense of, legally, because it seems like we're really starting to paint ourselves into a legal.
Well, so, see, the problem, like you mentioned, a couple organizations, I mean, this is the debate that a lot of municipalities get involved in, It's typically with parks, so this is an interior space, and you can definitely just say it can't, once the employee leaves at 4:30 or whatever it is, that's it, it's just not open. Because this is also where you keep your records and a number of others. So there's a number of issues with this building being used. when you open it, once you open it up, if you decide that you can that you can have a meeting here, you cannot say, well, the Boy Scouts sound like a nice organization, and then this other group really doesn't sound like a nice, you can't get involved in that discussion at all.
Right, it's one way or the other way.
Well, I'd like to speak to it, okay, because it seems this is all based upon the mayor's attempt to keep the Poquott civics from being able to meet here. So I want to talk to this, speak to this. I have here 150 signatures on a petition, all in support of the Poquott Civic Association's right to use Poquott Village Hall. Historically, the civics have met in Village Hall, and other groups have used it as well. These included a driver safety course to provide residents with a discount on their auto insurance, a U.S. Coast Guard auxiliary boating safety course. Those residents pay for the maintenance and the operational expenses of Village Hall. It does not belong to this board or to the mayor. 1 month ago, this board voted to accept a private road in bad condition with the obligation to now repair and maintain the road in perpetuity. It was presented by this board to the village residents as being the right thing to do, because the residents on the private road were village taxpayers. However, that action solely benefited 5 residents owning property on a dead-end private road. Now, somehow, it has become the right thing for the mayor to ask this board to deny 150 plus tax-paying residents the use of their village hall for their Poquott Village Association. The mayor directed the village attorney to write a resolution to deny the civics access to Village Hall, or for that matter, I guess, any group. It is solely because the Poquott Civic Association has not simply rubber-stamped every single thing that the mayor has sought to do in this village. It's the primary obligation of the Civic Association to keep the residents apprised of the activities and intentions of their village government. Besides that, every resident has the right to have an opinion and make an informed decision, even if it goes against the mayor's edicts. In a dictatorship, the first order of business is to suppress any dissenters or dissenting organizations. I can only hope that the mayor and this board remember that we live in a democracy, and opposing views are a constitutional right of all Poquott residents. Finally, it is not the right thing to pass this resolution to deny all the residents who are members of Poquott Civic Association from using their Poquott Village Hall. Thank you. And I don't know if you're copying all the signatures? Okay.
Anyone else want to speak?
Yeah, I want to speak to that. It is the right of the Civics Association to inform the people of what the board may want to do. It is not their right to sit down there and tell the people what they should and should not be doing. And that's what you have done. I am a member of the Civics Association, and I was a director. And I think that you have overstepped, the 4 board members, and you, what your capacity is in this whole situation. Yeah.
Friends of the mayor.
Bullshit. Has nothing to do with friends.
Can we have decorum, please?
Yes, thank you. This is not, okay, so, it's not the issue of them meeting, they can meet anywhere they want, they can have the freedom of speech anywhere they want. They just choose to meet.
It is
and give them
not
proper
their
permission.
right to sit down there and tear the board to pieces. They are not elected to sit down there and do that. They are elected to be board members by 20 or 30 people that sit here, but they did not get elected to do that by a vote like we do for the mayor, the trustees, or anything else. So you have overstepped your authority.
I feel that we'll have to vote on it, we'll get to the resolution, but I feel it is a safety issue. We don't know who's in here and who's not. We don't know how many people are here, and, you know, could be more than 4 to 5 residents. You know, and we know the reason, you know, they're in the government, you know, that's, so, we'll just have to vote for it.
Right? I know. I think the key thing here is that nobody, other than John, I guess, is addressing the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And that is the things that are going on outside of formal village government and official civic association business. And I think all of us have privately talked about getting everybody back to being civil, getting back to business as usual, and to focus on the things that we all need to do, both up here and everywhere else. You know, I've given this a lot of thought, and I actually wrote down a paradigm that I think is going on because it applies to both sides. If I can find it here, I'm just going to read it to you because what we need to do is to get past all this stuff and establish some dialogue about how the village can function without having every little thing be accusations, whatever, because it goes beyond one person. It's always the mayor and that board. So I have a problem with that, for sure. On the other hand, we have a civic association. And a civic association, to me, should be focusing on some of the things that they do. And it was never the case that the primary responsibility of the civic association was political. That was never the case. And in fact, and Beth would, I'm sure, back me up on this, when I wrote the statement of purpose, I put it down at the bottom because it could be a part of it, but there are all these other things. That was the primary purpose of a civic association. And I'm involved with the civic association. I'm very involved with the civic association, and I was very uncomfortable with the last meeting that I attended when nobody talked about any civic association stuff. It was all about the 800-pound gorilla, and things were being circulated at the meeting that were very uncomfortable for me. It was not civic association stuff. We heard Carol Pesic say she would, and the board would like to meet with the mayor, and then that never happened. You didn't want to meet. But I think what we need to do is to have that meeting, have everybody agree that this is what we would like to see, and have some promises that nobody's going to go to a civic association meeting and get up and say, that freaking government, they're all blah, 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 blah. And in the meantime, we're not going to deny something that has happened for years and years, the civic association meeting in this hall. It's a part of the fabric of the village. But until we get past this legal stuff and all the contentious issues, there's so many
Right there till then.
Okay, well, I would like to, I don't know if we need a consensus on this, but I would like to say, all right, enough.
We have a resolution.
Have a meeting, and we can come to some ground rules, and if the board of the Civic Association says, no, we don't agree to it, freedom of speech, and we can say whatever we want, we say, fine. We don't have to have you in our house, you go wherever you want to go, have your meeting, do whatever you want to do. If you want to become a politically activist association, fine. It's not a free speech issue, but nobody would allow people to come into their own home and just very actively badmouth and subvert the activity of in this case, the government.
However, it is the residents that pay for this building.
Okay, John, do
maintain
you
it,
pay your,
and
let me ask you
operate
this.
and pay to their
That's
taxes
not
for it.
true, John. Do you pay your federal income taxes?
Of course.
Okay,
Can't use the White House?
here's what. Drive your car down to Washington, D.C., go to the Capitol building and say, and demand that you want to have your cookie exchange in the Capitol building, because your taxes paid for the place. And then call us and tell us how you make it. You're not entitled to it, I'm sorry. I'm a civic association member, and it's not a part of village government that you be allowed to come to it. It's a courtesy, and I think it should happen. But here's the problem, John. If you take that attitude, and if we have that meeting and everybody else has that attitude, it's going to be the same old, and nothing is going to change. And the fact is, the rest of us are not happy with the way we're being attacked all the time, and it's because of something else.
Yeah. We all know what
Well,
they
we
did.
need to have it so that
Can't
you can talk about it all you want, but not in a meeting where you don't even talk about the next civic association activity. So I really would want to see the civic association continue to meet here. But I feel very strongly that all these attacks, and the average person who just gets up and makes a point, but it's an angry accusational point, it's, people somehow got lost their manners and are not focused on what we're supposed to be doing. That's what I
Okay,
mean.
well, we have it up for vote, and we can discuss it tomorrow in the next meeting, and then move on. All right, anyone else have any other business for the working meeting?
Yeah, I just had a couple things to say, so. Make it on. So, I was asked to, there's a couple things I was asked to look into, and there was a couple things that I was attacked about at the last hearing, so I'd like to talk about both of them. The first is I was asked at a couple meetings to look at the possible encroachments and on the roads, and some of the tree situations, and then also there was a discussion about the fire department and emergency access in the village. So at one point since the last meeting, I did drive all the streets in the village, I think a couple times one morning, and generally throughout the village, there's like one tree closer to the road than there should be. Really, probably throughout the village, you could cut down one line of trees. You know, the first tree on just about every road. You know, there might be a couple particular trees that I could talk to whoever you like about that. But as far as the legal part of encroachment, but generally throughout the village, on the narrow streets, there's almost every 50 or 100 feet there's a tree that's right in the village right of way. That probably at some point could go, could be taken down for safety reasons. The second thing is what I did was I contacted the Suffolk Fire District, and the person there is David Stern, who's the district manager, and I gave him the mayor's contact information, David Stern, and I gave him the mayor's contact information, and I said that I was calling on behalf of the village to with a concern that I heard at a meeting about whether there was access to the road, to the access to all the residences in the village for the vehicles of the fire department. Then that would be ambulances and fire vehicles. He said that what they would do unofficially, this isn't unofficial, but he did say that they would do it, is that when they had a chance, they would take an emergency vehicle, one or two emergency vehicles, and drive them through the village and just check the access throughout the village. He said that he had not heard of a specific instance of an access problem, but that they would be willing to do that, and he would get back to the mayor. So that was a few days ago. I don't know.
I haven't heard from him yet.
Yeah, but and then that was the fire department discussion. There was a couple spots that were mentioned to me during the meeting on Chestnut. I did look at them. There's one spot where there's stonework, which, I mean, really that whole side of the road is in the right of way. I mean, everybody's in the right of way, but there is one point where there's, I think it's, if I recall, it's white stonework that comes out just slightly more into the right of way than everybody else. So that, if there's something, we could take a closer look, maybe have the village engineer look at it, and come up with I could see if you were driving down that road, since it's, I did this in the daytime, but I could see how that could be an obstruction. It's not in the middle of the road, but if you were passing another car or driving, expecting, just basically following the line of everybody else's encroachment, there is a spot where the encroachment is greater and I could see that that could be a problem. And I could describe it to the village engineer, meet somebody there, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
At the public hearing on docks, I was, basically attacked or mouthed off to about things that were questions about that came up at the meeting and a prior meeting, and I just wanted to follow up on them since now I had time to figure out what the people were talking about. There was apparently a petition that was passed around to have the a dock built and or transferred built by and or transferred to an association. And as I said at the meeting, that I don't think that that's an acceptable way to go for a legally acceptable way to go for a dock. I think that the same thing that I said at the meeting, that a dock would have to, the end result was the dock would have to be in the village's name and ownership. The second thing is, it was mentioned at the meeting, somebody stood up and said that there was people that wanted to build the dock at their own cost and then transfer the ownership of a dock to the village. I think that that's problematic, because I don't know that the village wouldn't have complete control over the construction of the dock. And then there's also questions about whether they're paying prevailing wage or not paying, and what their design considerations are. So if there are a group of people that would like to contribute money to make sure to see that this gets done, or to facilitate it, if you make the decision to move ahead with this, what they could consider doing instead, just as an idea, something that I thought up in the meantime, is you could create something like a reserve fund, dedicated reserve fund for this, and then that group of people could donate money to that reserve fund. I believe that it would be deductible to them, although they would have to check that out, and with their personal situations. And but that's something that I would prefer. If there is a group of people that would be willing to fund this if it's something that you decide to do, I would recommend that it's done through a reserve account that they're or escrow account that they're contributing money to, rather than what was mentioned at the meeting. I don't think that that's a realistic approach.
Well, I think the first step though is to get a feasibility study back,
Yes.
and then evaluate that, and that could be months, so, once that's done, then we can move forward from there.
I have something I want to say. I want to go back to number 2 on our list.
Encroachment?
Yes. No, I just want to say something more, because as I have been so graciously given the job by John, because he doesn't want to deal with it, I have to say something.
Can you be clear about that?
And now that I'm saying it, Vinny Basili, who has one of those areas there, is now here, so he can give you his comment on it.
Not now.
Yeah, we can do that.
This is still a parking meeting.
Okay,
Why
all
don't you
right,
hold off until after we have a.
all right. I will.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.